Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Sir Syed Ahmad Khan, father of Pakistan movement, or Sir Syed Ahmad Khan's political services. One thing you keep in mind that Sir Syed Ahmad Khan was not a political reformer. He was not a politician. He was a social reformer. He wanted to reform the society. He wanted to change the mentality of the society in order to regain the confidence which had been lost because of the decline of the Muslims. However, his social services later on led to the political movement of Pakistan. Uh, if you ask me, what is the best political service rendered by Sir Syed Ahmad Khan, I would answer you to keep Muslims out of politics was the best service. Sir Syed Ahmad Khan worked hard to keep Muslims out of the politics. Even there was a greater opposition from Deoband. They even called him traitor. They even called him the puppet in the hands of the British, and that he was deliberately keeping the Muslims away from the mainstream politics. However, this saved Muslims in the end. At that time, politics was a poison for the Muslims. Muslims had to concentrate on building bridges with the British, and that could not happen while in politics. Politics is the name of confrontation with the British. So now, if he was not a political reformer, how did he chip in to the development of Muslim nationhood in the country? If somebody asks, who articulated for the first time the idea of Muslim nationhood, the idea as Muslims were a separate nation, the idea of two-nation theory, he was Sir Syed Ahmad Khan. This two-nation theory later on became Pakistan's ideology. Hindi-Urdu controversy erupted in 1867. Before it, Sir Syed Ahmad Khan was talking about nationalism, Indian nationalism. He was working for Hindu-Muslim collaboration. But 1867 Hindi-Urdu controversy, when Hindus they started campaigning to replace Urdu with Hindi as national language. That was a thing which disturbed Sir Syed's soul. Sir Syed at that time stated that this was not about just languages. This was also about cultures. They had different cultures, and these two nations will differ further. The one who lives will see, and that happened. Those people who lived later on, they saw really this happened, that these two nations separated further along the divide line. Hindi-Urdu controversy, which remained till 1947, and Hindu community's effort to make Hindi as national language was one of the things which made Muslim League later on, make Urdu the part of their political agenda. So it was started by Sir Syed first of all. Sir Syed articulated two-nation theory, and he used the word nation for the Muslims. He said Hindu and Muslim nations should separate more, the one who lives will see. And that Hindi-Urdu controversy that emerged in 1867 till 1947, that remained. So two-nation theory became later on the basis of Pakistan's movement. So he was the one who was the architect of it. And then separate electorate concept. It was Sir Syed Ahmad Khan who despised the idea of Western style democracy. He propagated that Western style democracy could not work in India. That democracy could only work in homogeneous society of West. And in India, where there were different cultures and different religions living, they were coexisting. Western style democracy meant domination of majority over minority. And for India, which was a heterogeneous society, uh, there should be some sort of democracy suitable to India, suitable to all the minorities. And the answer was separate electorate. Separate electorate to all the communities. Muslims electing only Muslim candidates, Hindus electing Hindu candidates. So this separate electorate became the agenda point of Muslim League later on. And separate electorate also tells us how deep rooted this concept of separatism was there in the minds of the Muslim consciousness, which later on was accepted by the British when they gave separate electorate in 1909 Act. Then afterwards, protection of Urdu. Sir Syed Ahmad Khan took this uphill task to protect Urdu. He started the Tehzeeb Akhlaq, simplified Urdu language, tried to popularize it among us Muslims, and the ornamentation of Ghalib, he removed it, and he gave simple version of Urdu. That was protection of Urdu. Later on, it became the agenda point of Muslim League. When Muslim League made its manifesto, cultural rights, the protection of Muslim cultural rights was the core point in it. And whenever it came to the protection of Muslims' cultural right, Urdu always came forward. I mean, that was the major focus. Next one, he was the one who laid foundation for good relations with the British. For almost 50 years or half a century, Muslims struggled hard following the advice of Sir Syed Ahmad Khan for the good relations with the British. And the British in the beginning of 20th century started giving favors to the Muslims. As we see in 1905, the British gave one province, East Bengal, to the Muslims. Bengal was partitioned, and that was the reward to the Muslim loyalty they had shown to us. Then the success of Shimla deputation, when they granted us separate electorate, this was also considered to be the success of Aligarh movement. And in 1909 Act, they permanently gave that law separate electorate to the Muslims. So it means Sir Syed Ahmad Khan laid foundation for good relations with the British. Then Muslim League founders, when Muslim League came into existence in 1906, most of the founders came from Aligarh. Either they were the graduates of Aligarh or the teachers, or they belonged somehow to Aligarh institution. So, and then, you know, Mohammedan Educational Conference, which was founded by Sir Syed Ahmad Khan in 1886 to keep Muslims away from Congress, that Mohammedan Educational Conference became the platform from where Muslim League was launched in 1906. So it was another thing which goes to the credit of Sir Syed Ahmad Khan and Aligarh movement. And you know, Aligarh always remained a front line role or front line Pakistan movement. The students from Aligarh and the graduates from them, they kept on struggling for Pakistan movement. It became later on the headquarter, as it was considered to be the headquarter of Pakistan movement. And then, you know, struggle against Congress, or it became ideology when Muslim League was counterweighing Congress politics, because Congress politics was all Hindu tilt, or they always worked for the interests of the Hindus. That became even ideology, deep-rooted ideology of Muslim League to counterweigh Congress, because this way they could safeguard the interests of the Muslims. That ideology was a legacy of Sir Syed Ahmad Khan, because he was the one in 1885 when Congress was set up, said keep away from Congress, because Hindus would dominate Congress because they were intelligent, they were cunning, they were educated, and the Muslims were not. Muslims could easily be manipulated and exploited by Congress for their own interests. And you know how, I mean, there was another question. I mean, this question, Syed Ahmad Khan was the father of Pakistan, political services of Pakistan. This has come repetitively in CSS. Many a time in PMS and then CSS it has come. But once another question came, and that was Sir Syed Ahmad Khan's or Aligarh's main features became agenda points of Muslim League and uh, the policy direction of Pakistan. So that was a little difficult for the students to handle, how it became the features or characteristics of this movement became the policy directions for Pakistan. When Pakistan came into being, we see they took the line of Sir Syed Ahmad Khan. They, they carried on that legacy. The first legacy, he tried to build good relations with the West, or Western education, or Western thought, or Western culture, or the British. So once Pakistan came into being, we see that Pakistan aligned itself or felt itself comfortable to align with the West instead of USSR, the communist country. I mean, both these powers sent Pakistan invitations. Even USSR sent it earlier, and America delayed in sending that invitation. However, Liaquat Ali Khan chose America to visit and create relations. And then afterwards, 1954-55, Pakistan became Western ally by signing 3 major pacts: SEATO, CENTO, and mutual defense cooperation with US. So we see this is Aligarh's legacy, that we felt comfortable with West instead of USSR, the communist regime. We can also say that Urdu is also a legacy. This is Sir Syed Ahmad Khan who really put us onto that path, that Urdu was actually Muslim culture in subcontinent. So when there was a lot of opposition from Bengal towards Quaid-e-Azam's this assertion that Urdu and only Urdu would be made national language of Pakistan, still Pakistan and the leaders of Pakistan put their foot down in favor of Urdu. And Urdu was given not only the status of national language along with Bengali in 1956 and 1962 constitutions, but Urdu was given more prominence. Then afterwards we see that not that Urdu was given that status, but English, which was the legacy of Sir Syed Ahmad Khan, because Sir Syed Ahmad Khan himself could not speak, write or read English, but he was a great exponent of English language. We also held English in high esteem, as English still is an official language of Pakistan. We have seen that in 1973 when it was provided that after 15 years, gradually English would be replaced by Urdu as official language, but it was impossible. We could not do away with English. Not only that, this was a lingua franca of the world, I mean global lingua franca, but also this was a legacy of Sir Syed Ahmad Khan we could not do away with. Next one is a rivalry with India. This is a very, very complex kind of an issue, rivalry. This is actually not only the political but also cultural phenomenon, very intricate cultural phenomenon. Any outsider could not understand. That is also the legacy of Sir Syed Ahmad Khan, who made us aware of the Hindu fear, and that Hindu fear also stressed him or made him ask the Muslims to keep away from Congress. Congress would be Hindu dominated. So once Pakistan came into being, we always regarded Hindustan as the mentality of Congress. So keeping away from Congress meant later on keeping away from Hindustan, because we always thought Hindu ideology as a threat to Islamic ideology. And we see that Islamic ideology, which he used the word nation, So this Islamic ideology, this Islamic character became the part of all the constitutions of the country, as we see that uh, in objectives resolution, Islamic ideology uh, was made the foundational structure of all the constitutions later on, and later on all the constitutional structure was to protect Islamic ideology. No law would be given against Islamic ideology. So we could say that not only Sir Syed Ahmad Khan was the father of Pakistan movement, or its major features, Aligarh's major features became the agenda point of Muslim League, but also it also gave Pakistan the policy direction.